I just want to give a quick thanks to the channel World War Wisdom for being the impetus for this video. He made a video where he did the exact same thing. He went and shot the World War II pistol qualification, but he also included a Google Doc in there that had the entire course of fire with the target sizes and everything like that to make it very easy for me to do this on my own, film it, and show it to you guys. Now, the pistol I'm going to be shooting is this Ithaca 1911 made in 1945. The ammo I'm going to be shooting is 230 grain ball ammo. It's Blazer aluminum case stuff, so not quite period accurate. The case would have been brass on a World War II era case, but the 230 grain ball round and the velocity it's going at is very similar to the issued ammunition from the era. So I've got my target set up at 25 yards. I don't have the actual L target from World War II, but the target dimensions were listed in that Google Doc that World War Wisdom provided, and the bullseye is 5 inches. This is a B8. The bullseye on this is about 5.5 inches. It's fairly similar, but I'm just using it as a reference point. And for scoring, I'm actually going to measure out radially from the center of the target with a tape measure, just like how World War Wisdom did his. So for all intents and purposes, this is just a stand-in. Don't pay attention to the scoring rings on this target. Now, I've never actually shot this 1911 before, so before I actually attempt the qualification, I'm going to try and see where it hits, but I'm also going to dry fire here before I even put any rounds down range, just to get a feel for the trigger. Just in the few dry fires I did before hitting the record button, the trigger on this isn't very great. And I also went ahead and before I set up the target, I already blackened the sights. If you don't know what I mean by that, essentially you take a lighter or a carbide lamp or some burning masking tape and you apply a layer of soot to the front and rear sight to kind of give it a matte black look. We're on a pretty bright day, there's a lot of glare, so I want to eliminate that glare. These GI sights are hard enough to see as it is, but they're even harder to see when the sun is washing them out. So that's what the soot does. I always find that these GI 1911s hit high for me, and that's probably because they were designed to be shot 6 o'clock hold back in the day. That was the sight picture that was taught for the longest time, was 6 o'clock hold. And what I mean by that is if you imagine the bullseye as a face of a clock, you're essentially putting that front sight aligned in the rear sight at the bottom of that circle, the 6 o'clock position on a clock or a watch face, for example. I tend to find that they hit even higher than that. So at this distance, I'm actually going to aim below the bullseye, almost on the edge of the repair center. And by the way, for any shots that land out of the repair center, I'm going to go ahead and measure again with the tape measure. So don't worry about that if they're off the paper. There's also some shot holes on the cardboard backer that I've already marked, so I know which shot holes are old and which shot holes are new. So I'm going to go ahead and dry fire a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and shoot a few rounds just to see where it's hitting, and then I'm going to start the qualification for real. Okay, so I was aiming under the bullseye and I hit high right. I aimed a little bit lower and now I'm hitting in the 10 ring. Oh, I think it's stacked right on top of it. Now, one of the things you got to watch out for with these GI 1911s is you have to make sure that they can shoot, and it looks like this one's actually pretty decent. Some 1911s, even some modern Colt government models, you'll get them and you'll try to shoot them at 25 yards, and the best group you can make is like 4 inches, which is pretty bad, but pretty standard when it comes to, you know, an 80-year-old 1911 with how loose these guns are, with how many replacement parts they are. For example, I don't think the barrel on this is original. I think the slide and frame are original. Who knows if the bushing is original, if the link is original, the slide stop pin, all of these things will affect accuracy. So overall, I'm pretty happy with that result. I'm going to go ahead and put up a fresh target, and then we're going to go ahead and shoot the qualification. Okay, so I've gone ahead and moved the camera into the shade to stop it from overheating, but also to give you a better view of what I'm doing here. So the first stage of this qualification is going to be slow fire. We're going to be shooting on that L target 5-inch bullseye at 25 yards. It's going to be 2 strings of 5 shots each, and there's no time limit specified. I'll try not to take too long. The important thing when it comes to slow fire is to use the available time. If you don't like how a shot feels, or you think you're just too unsteady, or the wind's blowing really hard, just stop, put the gun down, put it in your other hand, do something, but just stop and learn how to not pull the trigger. So I'm gonna go ahead and shoot my 10 shots. Hopefully I don't take too long. You guys are gonna see them as they drop in. First shot was high and to the left. I think I'm holding off too far to the left. 10 ring. I think I know where to hold now. Now, one thing I noticed about this gun is that if I'm putting pressure on the trigger, I can feel that sear starting to move and slip off the hammer hooks. And if I decide not to shoot and I take my trigger finger off of it, that sear is actually still halfway off the hammer hooks. Something about the sear angle in here, maybe the sear spring's worn out and tired, that it's not resetting when I take my finger off the trigger, so I'm gonna have to address that. But that's why you see me pull back on the hammer after I abort a shot. That's to make sure that the sear has reset under the tension of the hammer hooks. So that's just a safety thing. If you don't do that, the next time you get on the trigger, you're gonna get on it and you're gonna blow through the trigger because it's gonna be way lighter than you were expecting because you've already taken up 2.5, 3 pounds of that trigger pull. And this pistol probably has about a 5.5 pound trigger pull. The trouble I'm running into is I'm having trouble seeing my sights against the brown cardboard because I'm having to aim under the target to hit the black. Didn't see where that one went. Oh, first malfunction here. So it looks like a premature lockback and a failure to feed. So we've got all 5 shots on paper, which is good. We have one kind of way out here. That was the one I broke sort of high and off to the left. I think that's still in the 9 ring, according to this. So what I'm gonna do now to score this is I'm gonna measure radially from the center of the target. So 10 is gonna be within 2.5 inches, right? Because the 10 ring is 5 inches, so half that, 2.5 inches. The 9 ring is 8.5 inches, so half of that would be 4.25 inches. And I don't think we have anything outside of that yet, so I don't have to whip out the tape measure. So first shot, let's see here. So from the X. Now the other thing is, when it comes to bullseye-based scoring, typically if the edge of the bullet hole is touching the scoring ring, you get the next higher value. So that 5-inch bullseye with a 45 really turns into about a 6-inch target because you have a 0.45-inch diameter bullet on top of the size of the actual bullseye. Even though this one is kind of on the edge of my 5.5-inch bullseye, if I put it from the center out, I can see that it is definitely touching 2.5 inches, so that would be a 10. This one is also definitely touching 2.5 inches, so that's a 10. These ones are clearly inside 2.5 inches if these two are within it, so those are also 10s. And then for my 9 ring, we said 4.25 inches, so I'm gonna go ahead and measure from the center. And this shot hole is 4 inches out, giving me a total score of 49 out of 50 on this first 5-shot string. I don't think we're gonna be stacking rounds on top of each other, but it helps to know which ones are which. I've also put my score from the first string up here, so let's go ahead and shoot the next 5 and see if I can do better than that. I'm supposed to get to 90 today, so I'm hoping to clear out of here before it gets there. And again, the ammunition I'm shooting, CCI Blazer 230 grain ball ammo with the aluminum case. Seems pretty decent. Oof, that one's gonna be close. I think that's a 9. Can't see where that went. I think it was in the 10 ring. Now, one thing you might have noticed is that when I bring the gun up, I bring it up over the target, I look at the front sight, I align them, and then I bring it down. And then, like I said, with this pistol, I'm actually aiming significantly under the bullseye in order to hit center. Dude. So here's the thing. If you are having issues breaking that trigger, and this trigger's so heavy, I'm having issues breaking it and the wind's blowing me around, I can't get the sights to settle down. One thing you should do is just unload it and dry fire it. There you go. I think I stacked it on one of those other shots. Oof, that one went way high. No idea where these shots are going now. The glare from the sun is just too much on the screen of my camera. The only ones I can see are the ones that end up in the white. So hopefully these are ending up in the black and not like off the paper into the cardboard. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that far one that's just on the edge of the bullseye is not in. That would be a 9. So again, my second string is going to be a 49. Really not bad for GI 1911 where I'm aiming like here and I can barely see my sights half the time. So I'll take that. So the next stage of this is going to be rapid fire. There's 2 stages of rapid fire. The first one is shot at 15 yards on the L target, the bullseye target. And that's going to be 2 strings of 5 shots in a time limit of 11 seconds. In this, the rapid fire stage, you can start with your sights on the target. As soon as the command is given, you can go ahead and dump your 5 shots in that 11-second time limit. I'm actually using different ammo for this because I'm running low on the aluminum case stuff. So let's go ahead and shoot some of this Fiocchi 230 grain hardball.
Ready on the left. Ready on the firing line.
Oh, had a failure. Tell you what, I'm gonna go mark those first 3 shots and then go ahead and reshoot it. Another failure. God damn it. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm just gonna shoot this round in 2 seconds. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and give myself a 1.5 second timer to shoot this 1 shot. Let's call that our alibi fire. I'm gonna switch magazines after this as well.
Ready on the firing line.
All right, let's call that good. First string of rapid fire at 15 yards. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots. These 3 shots were those first 3 shots where I had that initial failure. So this one's the only one that looks kind of squirrely. Measured from the center of the target, that's well within 2.5 inches. So stage 1 is going to be 50 out of 50 points. So I've got a different magazine. Got my timer set to 11 seconds. Put a little bit of oil on her. Let's see if it runs a little better. So 5 shots, 11 seconds, rapid fire. Damn it. Well, you heard the timer go off as I was shooting that last shot. I'm gonna call that one a skitter. So on the old military turning targets, and I've shot on a lot of turning targets, you're gonna have some degree of error, or not error, but time where you could still shoot that target as it's turning away from you. And how long that beep is usually about how much time you have for that target to turn away from you. So my next 5 shots, you guys probably saw this better than I did. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know which one of these is my last shot. They were all 10s. So my second string was 50 out of 50. Or if you want to be mean, you can subtract 10 and give me 40 out of 50. For that 1 shot, that was a skitter, which is essentially shot in the time it takes for the target to turn away or towards you. So 40 out of 50 or 50 out of 50, so either 100% or 90%. You know, whatever. Okay, so the next stage of rapid fire is back out to 25 yards on the same L target. This is going to be shot in a time limit of 15 seconds. 2 5-shot strings in 15 seconds, 25 yards, L target. All right, let's go take a look-see. So I just want to say before anything that these 3 shots were from a previous attempt. Another stoppage, so I stopped and just restarted again. My 5 shots, as you saw from the camera, were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Luckily, I did have those stoppages because it kind of gave me a second chance. For some reason, I'm hitting a lot higher than I was earlier. So now I'm aiming like below the target, and these sights in this trigger are not conducive to accuracy. So this is actually pretty tough. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots here at 25 yards. So I've got 3, 4, 5, 6. I got a 44 out of 50 on this first stage. Didn't feel good at all, but we'll see. So I've gone ahead and tallied everything up. Got a shot here, a shot here. I've got one shot here, one shot here, and one shot here. You guys probably saw that better than I did. So that's a 6, a 7, and 3 10s. So 4 plus 3 is 7. So my second string would be a 43 out of 50. Honestly, pretty difficult stage. Those sights and trigger are just not conducive to accuracy. I was having to hold way down here in the cardboard where I could barely see my sight alignment. I'm pretty happy with that. So let's go ahead and put on the next target. So the next stage of fire is called quick fire. It's shot at 25 yards on an E-type silhouette. You have 3 seconds to raise the gun from a 45 and take one shot, and you're gonna do that 5 times per string of fire. Now, it's shot on an E-type silhouette. In the actual qualification, I don't have any E-type silhouettes, so I put up a B29 instead. A B29 is a little bit smaller than an E-type silhouette, so if there are any shots on the silhouette here, I'm gonna count them as a hit. So right now I've got my timer set up to give me 3 seconds of target exposure and 7 seconds of rest, and I'm gonna do that until I run out of ammo. 5 shots per magazine. I'm gonna do it 15 times. All right. Now the trick to this style of shooting, it's very similar to international centerfire, 25-meter centerfire, or a 25-meter sport pistol. And the 3 second, 7 second thing that I have set up is identical. But the trick to it is to come up on the target and then come down, and what you're doing is you're kind of loading your muscles to want to snap back to position right on target, and then all you're doing is just pulling the trigger. Instead of just coming up cold turkey from the bottom, sometimes you'll find you're just way off and then you got to swing it over to the right and you're just losing time. So line up on the target first, bring your arm down, and then come back up as soon as you hear the buzzer, or you see the target turn, or you see the light turn green, or the light, the red light turn off. So let's do 5 more shots. I think that might have been a miss. All right, looks like we got a couple off the paper. That's okay. I'm gonna go back and measure them. Again, this target is smaller than the E-type silhouette. All right, let's go see how we did. Okay, so just for reference, the hit area on an E-type silhouette is 19.5 inches. To show you what 19.5 inches looks like, it looks like that. So I had plenty of room to spare here. And then vertically, it's 40 inches tall. So to show you what 40 inches looks like, it's like that. The E-type silhouette is like a full man-sized silhouette. The B29 is a reduced size silhouette. I think this is meant to be shot at 15 yards or 50 feet or something like that. The B27 would be the full-size version of this target. This is for NRA, I believe, action pistol and police pistol combat competition shooting. So any hits on this paper are a hit on an E-type silhouette easily. So with that, I've got 15 shots on paper, so 15 hits for the qualification, a score of 100%. But even if we're looking at the B29, again, this is a target meant to be shot at 15 yards or 50 feet or something like that. I only had one that was not breaking the scoring rings or touching anywhere on here. I even had one headshot here, so blew his ear right off. So pretty cool. Let's go ahead and tally up the total score and see where I stand. Well, before we begin our debrief, I want to take a quick second to talk about our channel sponsor, Michael Scott Earl. Michael Scott Earl is a New York Times best-selling author who writes books in a variety of genres. I'm currently reading, or rather listening to, his Star Justice series. I'm on the 3rd book now. And that's one of the things I do like about Michael Scott Earl is that all of his books are pretty much fully voice acted in an audiobook format. And if they aren't currently, then they will be in the future. If you go ahead and follow the link on screen or click the links down below or in the pinned comment, you can actually get the first book for free as an ebook format. So that'll be the first book in the Star Justice series. It's sort of an action, adventure, sci-fi novel. So if that sounds like your thing, go ahead and check it out. Thank you to Michael Scott Earl for sponsoring the channel. So the way that the qualification badges are awarded, that is marksman, sharpshooter, and expert, has to do with the percentage scores in each stage. So the first stage we shot was that slow fire stage, and I scored a 49 out of 50 on the first string and a 49 out of 50 on the second string for a total percentage score of 98%. And like I said, I was having to aim pretty far below the bullseye to get shots in the black, and I was still high on the bullseye. So realistically, if I had a better zero and a little bit more time on that gun, then I probably could have dropped them all into the black. Perfect score. And you know, speaking of, I think this gun shot pretty great for what it is. I did determine that this Mekgar magazine is kind of junk that came with it, so I'm probably not going to use that anymore. But the pistol shot fine. I mean, these are not particularly accurate pistols when they come from the factory, especially when they're, you know, 80 plus years old. And you know, well, this one doesn't rattle that bad at all. So maybe I got a good one, but they're not great. I'll tell you this much: the trigger on this thing is horrible. It's like 6 pounds, super stagey. I mean, I can see cosmoline in there, so there's probably some kind of grit and cosmoline and stuff just built up in there, and you get a horrible 3-stage trigger with this one. So I think that was holding me back a lot, especially on the rapid fire stage. I talked about this in my Ruger review, but when it comes to rapid fire, having a trigger that you are familiar with and you know very well is incredibly important for getting those shots off in time and in a cadence that will help you maintain accuracy. So the next stage we shot was 15-yard rapid fire. So this was 5 shots in 11 seconds twice. So actually, I just realized after coming back in, kind of rewatching the World War Wisdom video, I was supposed to start from a 45 on these, but I guess whatever. I'll just go with whatever score is on here. So this one, depending on how you wanted to score me, I either shot 100% or I shot a 90%. On the last shot of the second string, I did shoot as the beeper was going off. So, you know, in theory, that would basically mean that I shot as the target was turning away from me. Realistically, if you break the shot and you still have time to recognize that the target is turning away from you, human reaction time being what it is, that shot already made it to the paper. And usually they'll manifest as kind of an elongated hole on the paper. I'm gonna go with that. That's my theory, I'm sticking with it. So 15-yard rapid fire, I shot 100%. The one that really kind of kicked my ass, and I'm not sure why, was the 25-yard rapid fire. Now this is the same target we were shooting for the slow fire at 25 yards, but instead of having, you know, essentially unlimited time, we have 15 seconds to take our 5 shots, and we do that twice. And I was holding in the same spot, you know, I was aiming basically right at the bottom of the target, and all of my shots were still hitting significantly higher. I don't know if my ammunition was getting hotter or something changed with my grip or something like that, but yeah, we were hitting significantly higher to the point of having a 6, 2 7s, and a bunch of 9s up here. So yeah, this was actually a pretty challenging stage. Those GI sights don't make it easy. That trigger doesn't make it easy. The two biggest things when it comes to accurate shooting is going to be your sights and your trigger. I think that gun is probably mechanically capable of shooting a perfect score at that distance. I think it can shoot a perfect score using these scoring rings even, but the sights and the trigger make it incredibly difficult to maintain that consistently through each shot. Again, I screwed this up because I guess I was supposed to start from a 45-degree angle, bring up the gun, and then pull the trigger. Oh well. So first string was a 44 out of 50, second string 43 out of 50, total score of 87 out of 100. So if we add our two rapid fire scores together, 87 and 100, 187 divide them by 2, we have 93.5% for our rapid fire stage. And last but certainly not least was the quick fire stage. So this was the one where I was bringing the gun up onto the target from a 45-degree angle, taking one shot in a time limit of 3 seconds. This was my favorite stage. I had a lot of fun with it. This is a B29 target. It's a reduced size target of the B27. B27 is a full-size silhouette. This is like a half-size silhouette. Significantly smaller than the E-type silhouette I was supposed to use at 25 yards. So any hits on this paper would count as a hit on an E-type silhouette. But even if we were using just the B29, we're looking at 14 out of 15 hits. But if we're looking at the E-type silhouette, we're looking at 15 out of 15 hits for a total score of 100%. And again, I had to like consciously remind myself to basically aim lower right here at this guy's like pelvis basically to hit the shots kind of where I wanted them, high center chest. One of them got kind of away from me. I thought that was going to be off the paper, but turns out to just kind of clip him in the head. So pretty decent target. If we add our scores together of 98%, 93.5%, and 100%, and we divide that by 3, we end up with a total percentage of 97.16%, which gives me a classification of pistol expert. So less than 60% would be unqualified, 60 to 77% would be a marksman, 78 to 84% would be a sharpshooter, and 85% or higher would be an expert. So even if, let's say we subtracted 10 points from each of my rapid fire targets because I didn't do the 45 or because I had that one shot that broke as the timer went off, I would still be shooting an expert score here. Really, this is a fairly challenging course of fire. And part of the challenge comes from the equipment, right? And not necessarily the mechanical accuracy of the 1911, but the terrible sights and the pretty awful trigger. The other difficulty comes from the fact, and not for me, but for most other people that probably would attempt this, and World War Wisdom, I think, did an admirable job attempting this. I'm happy he did, or else I wouldn't have made this video. But most people just don't practice shooting one-handed traditional marksmanship, traditional pistol marksmanship at 25 yards, right? 25 yards is an extended distance for people when, in my opinion, 25 yards is like the short-range target for a pistol. Now, I think if I shot this with the TSOS 1911, like a newer version of this, because those guns actually have pretty good triggers from the factory. The sights are also a little cleaner. This one's been dinged up and banged around, so it's really not the best. And the rear sight on this is also a little narrower than the TSOS. So I think if I shot this with a TSOS, I probably would have shot significantly better. I also don't know what happened, again, with that ammo just printing so much higher when I was shooting the rapid fire versus shooting the slow fire. I was not having any low left shots though, which is good. Low left shots are typically indicative that you are jerking the trigger or really just coming in too hot on that trigger and forcing the gun down and to the left. If you're a left-handed shooter, that'd be low and to the right. That just has to do with the biomechanics of how your fingers interact with each other when you squeeze. They tend to dip the gun. The other thing is I didn't have any significantly low shots. That means I wasn't anticipating the recoil. It's a pretty common thing. And an easy way to test for that is with a ball and dummy round. So you load a few live rounds and then you load one dummy round in there and then you'll be shooting, and you'll get to that dummy round. And if you're flinching or anticipating the recoil, you'll see yourself do this and you'll go forward like that, or you'll drive the gun down or something like that. So easy way to diagnose that problem. With the time limits you're given here, there's really no reason why you should be flinching. 10 seconds or 11 seconds is more than enough time to get 5 shots off. 15 seconds is more than enough time to get 5 shots off. 3 seconds is more than enough time to get 1 shot off. Now, my opinion on this qualification as a whole is actually pretty positive. I think this is more challenging than pretty much any current military pistol qual, in my opinion. And it's more challenging than most law enforcement pistol qualifications. I'm sure there's probably some high-speed law enforcement department out there that has a really high standard. But looking at some of the police department qualification tests I've seen here on YouTube and stuff like that, they're really not impressive by any means. But asking someone to hit a 5-inch bullseye at 25 yards with one hand, that's a skill that people just don't have anymore. People don't practice. And it's a shame, because if you learn how to do that, all other pistol shooting really feels super, super easy. And that's part of the reason why I had no problem shooting that B29, that reduced size silhouette target. I was like, well, I don't have a full size E silhouette. I don't feel like finding one or looking for one. I'll just shoot one of these B29s I have, even though it's significantly smaller, and I had no problem doing that, just because the confidence I have from knowing that with match guns, I regularly can print, a 3-inch group at 25 yards at that pace. So if I can do that, with a unaccurized shit gun, I could probably print, a 12-inch group at that distance, which is more than enough to hit the inside of an E-type silhouette. And I think I ended up with like a 10-inch group there, so no problem. So GI 1911s and I, we don't really interface as well as I would like. Now, 1911s, not 1911A1s, for me, they're some of the most comfortable pistols to shoot. Something about the trigger reach with the long trigger, the flat back strap, they work well for me. The 1911A1 does not work fantastically for me. Both of them have the diminutive sights, but the A1 has the super short trigger. And when I shoot this gun, I pretty much am pulling with the second joint of my finger here. So not even like where it bends on the first joint, but like the middle sausage link of my finger is where I'm pulling. And people say, oh, you should be shooting with the pad of your index finger like that. No. You can shoot this qualification however you want, okay? I'll shoot it the way I want. One thing I noticed after shooting all those rounds of hardball was, man, this arched mainspring housing really does dig into you after a while. I don't really prefer it. I used to prefer it for whatever reason. I don't prefer it anymore after shooting a lot of flat back strap. So yeah, and then of course the sights are just really bad. So again, thank you to World War Wisdom for showing off how to do this qualification and also putting the information in that Google Doc. I think he did a great job. I think with just a little bit more practice and some tightening up of his technique and following some of the tips here that I was discussing while shooting, he can actually bring his score up to at least qualify. But I think really with a reasonable effort, anyone should be able to shoot an expert score. Now, whether you shoot an expert score on your first try is something completely different. I think there's probably maybe 5 or 6 people here on YouTube that can shoot an expert score first try. And that's because I think this is a pretty challenging qualification for most people because it is shot with one hand. It's something that people just don't really practice. It's also shot at distances that people really don't practice. And so World War Wisdom, not even really being a gun YouTuber, he focuses mainly on reenactment and talking about history and stuff like that. I think he did a great job. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my content, you'd like to support me directly, please go ahead and click the join button next to the subscribe button to become a channel member. It starts at, I believe, 99 cents. Thank you again to Michael Scott Earl for sponsoring this video. I will go ahead and see you on the next video.